Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris, the High Guy Jacobs, and today we're taking a look at part 2 of our deep dive into the Rider heroes. Part 1, we looked at all the specialty heroes, Cynthia, Catherine, and Mai, the ones that you can get additional stuff for, skins or collaboration stuff with. And today we're taking a look at who I believe are some of the top rally heroes in the Rider division, some of the ones that you'll expect to see, and some of the ones that you'll have a lot of usability in counter rallies or running main rallies or what have you. Now remember, here's another disclaimer. Riders are incredibly flexible. You can use riders throughout the field. You can use riders in rallies. You can use riders in garrisons. There is a ton of flexibility in the rider lifestyle right now, okay? So I'm not saying that these heroes are only used for rallies or only used for sieges. I'm just saying that their kit works really well for running rallies or running sieges, and it just helps me kind of split up the video so you're not going to have 7 heroes in one video and only 1 or 2 heroes in another. Okay? So, just understand, a lot of what this has done is just to give us an idea on what these heroes do so that we can choose where to use them ourselves and use them more intelligently. Okay? So, first heroes that we're going to talk about today. Let's talk about Bella. Lionheart Girl Bella. Now, why am I going to say that Bella is good in rallies? Well, you're going to see her kit and why, and I'll give you obviously my tips on why I think she works good in rallies. Again, doesn't mean she can't be used in field. She's got lots of flexibility, but I definitely think that one of the ways that she will shine, and you will see her shine, is running rallies, especially multi-rallies, things like that, where you're having to rally against, say, an infantry garrison that's trying to tank a lot, okay? So first off, Bella's got her main skill here. It's called Fatal Claw, requiring 1,000 rage, dealing damage directly to a squad at 12,000 damage, with a 50% chance to increase the enemy's damage taken by 15% for 3 seconds. So a 50% chance, a coin toss, to increase the enemy's damage taken. Flat damage taken, right? Not specific. So that's a flat damage increase of 15%. So whoever you have hitting next after she hits, right? Her skill hits first. The next person whose skill is going to hit is going to have a 50% chance to basically deal an additional 15%. So, pair her with someone like Elena, pair her with someone like Sven, pair her with someone like Jonathan, right? Any of these players that have a decent damage on their damage factor for their ability has an increase. Now, granted, it is only 12,000, so we are starting to see Bella get a little outdated here, right? Compared to the 13, 14, and sometimes 15,000 damage that we'll see from some other heroes. But with this damage increase, it still does bring her up to still being quite relevant. Next, we've got Wild Rampage. When not in battle, rider travel speed increases by 30%. Okay, so when not in battle, you're going to get an increase of 30%. Makes you faster outside of battle. Gains 150 rage when entering battle, but travel speed will be reduced by 10% for 3 seconds when taking skill damage. So, this is one of the reasons why I don't like her necessarily in the field. Yes, she's faster when she's not in battle, but as soon as you enter battle, she's slowed. And when you take skill damage, she's slowed again. So it makes her harder to get away from people. And once you're engaged in battle, she no longer has that speed buff, right? So if you think about it, one of the best ways to, I mean, basically, if you're in a rally, for example, this is going to make you getting to the rally to the target much quicker. And then once you're in a rally, you don't care about your skill damage or your travel speed being reduced because you're in a target anyways until it's done. So you're going to enter in, going to be doing more damage faster than them, and then your reduction in travel speed doesn't matter because you're in a targeted rally. Okay. Next, we've got Piercing Fangs, a passive skill, increasing the rider's attack by 30%, and dealing 24% more damage to squads with shield effect. So again, why do I think this is going to be beneficial in a rally? Because one of the best rally squad, or one of the best garrisons for infantry right now, is Rygaro Riven. Rygaro Riven has a shield effect. So increased damage, dealing 24% more damage to squads with shield effect is a huge increase. Okay? Yes, you can use her in the field, but remember, she loses her speed when she's not in battle, and Raigoro also has a thing that guarantees, like if you look at Raigoro, because we just did this in our last videos, he's got a skill that slows you down, right? When attacked, reduces the squad's travel speed by 25%. So now it makes it very difficult for Bella to keep up. Again, not saying she can't be used in there, just giving you reasons why I think she does better in the rally position. Okay? Now we've got Savage Hunt, passive skill when leading only rider squads. Damage increases by 15%. Increased damage dealt to target squad by 12% when its remaining squad size is less than 30%. So again, another reason why I think she does well in rallies. Okay? You're going to be leading only rider squads in those rallies. You can restrict it to only rider squads. An additional 15% is huge. And a lot of times, those rallies are going to sit within that 30% HP situation for a long time. You'll notice, especially against towers, things like that, the HP of the tower will drop drastically, get down to about 30%, and then stay in the red for a long time. So having that additional bonus 12% damage is consistent. Okay? This is just one of the reasons why I think she's going to do better in your rallying positions. Okay? It doesn't mean you can't use her in the field. I cannot stress this enough. It just means that I think she'll be better in rally. Now, once you have her awakened, her damage increases from 12 to 13,000. Decent. And increases the target's damage taken by 20%. So it's a guaranteed 20% for 3 seconds, which is huge, right? Pair her with someone that hits hard like Elena, for example, who's got one of the hardest hitting abilities in the game. Where is Elena? Down here. She's got one of the hardest hitting abilities in the game. 16,200 damage. Right? And if it's flanked, you're looking at almost 18,000 damage. 17,850 damage. So, tons of usability. When you pair her all together, right? So you have this awaken skill with Elena. You can see how that's going to hurt. So, but that's Bella. Really good. Lots of flexibility. You can still use her in the field if you want. I just think she works better in rally. Next, let's talk about Elena. We were just mentioning her. Let's bring her out. Lone Ranger Elena. Now, Elena by herself is a little bit more specific. She can absolutely work well in the field. If you're running multiple marches or in a murder ball or in a group squad, things like that, absolutely. You'll see her kit will play into that. But she also has kind of a hyper focus on counter rallying. Because her thing is she wants to be flanking targets. She wants to be targeting she wants to target a target that's already being targeted. I know I just said targeted a lot, but she wants to make sure that she's not the only one hitting somebody, right? And what's the best way to do that? Counter rallying, right? Because you're counter rallying. Your rally is already targeted by the thing that it's focused on. You're coming in, you're now flanking it, so you're automatically getting that bonus damage, and you'll start to see how that kind of plays well for what she does. Okay, so with Elena, she's one of those situations where as we go through the kit, you'll see, again, lots of flexibility, but I definitely think she's going to work in that rally position. She's got the skills talent tree, so she's pumping out a lot of damage. And once you see her damage numbers, you'll see why she does really well there. First and foremost, Enforced Justice coming in at 1,000 rage, dealing damage to the target every 3 seconds at a damage factor of 5,400. If the target is flanked, the damage received by the target will be increased to 5,950 instead. Okay, so this is what I was talking about before. So you're going to go from dealing 16,200 damage, right, to 17,850 damage just by going on a flank target. One of the hardest hitting abilities in the game. Okay, to a flanked target. Now we've got Tactical Rollover. When receiving AoE damage, there's a 50% chance of reducing the damage received Sorry, when receiving AoE damage, there's a 90% chance of reducing damage received by 40%. This effect can be triggered at once every 6 seconds. So when receiving AoE damage, there's a 90% chance of reducing the damage by 40%. So again, really huge, both in the field or in rallies. Because a lot of these rallies running AoE damage, right? If you look at infantry, for example, Stella has AoE damage, I believe. Let me just double check. I don't remember. I know Miyamoto's got AoE damage. Marco's got AoE damage. Who was I looking at? Sorry. Riven doesn't, but I was looking at, I want to see Stella. Is this to enemy target? But it's this one. No, it's only single to the one target. Okay. So she doesn't have AoE, but even things like, I think Robert has AoE in his burn. Yeah, so Robert has AoE. I mean, it's not really AoE. I guess it's just counterattacks. Maybe I'm wrong there. But even, I mean, Julia's got AoE. You've got Marco as AoE. Bodala's AoE. I mean, there's a lot of options that have this AoE effect, right? So she's got a 90% chance to reduce it by 40%. That's huge. Very tanky. Okay? Now we've got Ambush. Increasing rider defense by 30% and increasing damage dealt to flank targets by 13.5%. So now this is dealing additional damage by 13.5%. So what's an additional 13.5% on top of 17,890 or 850? Well, let's do some very simple math. And I'm going to do it using a calculator. 17,850 times 13.5%. That's an additional 2,400 damage. So now we're talking over 20,000 damage. Kick me in the nuts. You see what I'm saying? That's a lot of damage to flank targets. Now we got High Noon, increasing basic attack damage by 30%. And when rage is above 50%, basic attack damage increases to 53%. So increase it to 30%, but when you have more than 50% of your rage, it increases to 53%. And think about it, when you restart, because of the skills tree, when you restart, you're already starting at almost 50% of your rage. It's very, very close. And you can kind of tell because of the bubbles. You got 4 bubbles on the side, and like 2 of them fill up after you use a skill. So this additional basic attack damage at 53% is going to be pretty consistent. Tons of damage, and basic attack damage you want to be in battle for a long time. Again, suited to rallies and counter rallies. Okay? Again, you don't have to use her in counter rallies. You could use her in multi-rally targets. So in AR, for example, or IR, targeting a tower in Archipelago Raid, right? So you can have 3 marches going on a tower. One of those marches can be Elena. Like Elena Bella, for example, would be pretty sick. High damaging line, coming in and you know, dealing, especially to an infantry line, decent damage. And then lastly, she's getting her last ones when she's awakened. You're going to get an additional squad attack, rider squad attack of 20% and travel speed of 20%, which is huge. 20% is one of the biggest ones you're going to see in travel speed for riders. So getting that there is pretty decent, right? We looked at 12% for Cynthia, 15% for Mai, 20% here for Elena. Okay. So really good. One of those situations I would pair her with Elena, or like, I would pair her with Bella if you're doing a main rally. I would pair her with Sven if you're doing a main rally. I would pair her with Jonathan if you're doing a counter rally. And you'll see when we talk about Jonathan exactly why, because that's really the only thing he does well. Lots of usability. You can still use her in the field. Still works well in groups, right? Because as long as she's flanked, you can flank targets yourself. And that's really going to provide that extra damage. So lots of flexibility, but I definitely think she does better in the rally position. Next, let's talk about our boy Sven. Sven used to be at the top of the game and then fell quickly afterwards once we started to introduce new heroes, new garrison heroes, and the rest. he still has usability. Obviously, you're still going to use him in Siege and stuff like that, but he's going to be co-leading now. Because he's got the support skill tree, or the support talent tree, he's not going to be doing much. Even if you look at the strategy that they have for him, you know, they're putting all of his talents inside of the rider skill and very little inside the support. Because even they know that he's going to be co-leading, you know? Or entirely in the garrison side. If he's going to lead, I guess. That's crazy. So, first and foremost, super tanky. Okay? Super tanky. You'll see his skills. You'll see how his skills play out. He's super tanky. But the Night Devil, Sven Schaefer, again, going to be co-leading most of your lines. I wouldn't be leading with him. I'd be co-leading with him. Unless you're doing something like Sven Jin. Sven Jin, like Master Jin, is still like a decently tanky line. Provides a lot of troops. Good for absorbing a lot of damage, things like that. Still decent, just not in comparison to a lot of the other ones that are out. He's just getting old in comparison to everybody else. That's all. Just getting a little outdated. Okay? So first and foremost, we're talking about a Burning Hatred dealing... Burning Hatred costing 1,000 rage, dealing damage to one squad at 12,000. So again, we're a little bit low. And increasing your travel speed by 50% for 5 seconds. To me personally, this is not nearly as important because the increase to travel speed doesn't really matter because you're not going to really using him in the field very much. You might. You could, theoretically. There's only a couple that are, you know, 1 or 2 skills that are based on him sieging, so we'll see. But you're going to deal 12,000 damage to one target and increase by 50% for 5 seconds. Next, we're going to get into Gang Fight. Passive skill increasing the Rider Squad attack by 20% and defense by 20%. Not bad. Just a little small in comparison to the rest, right? You can start to see a little bit outdated. Now we have Wild Hunter. When leading only Rider Squads, damage taken is reduced by 15%. So a nice tanky build, which will also suit for him being Rally because you're going to be sending only Rider Squads. Reduces damage taken by 12% during Siege. Basic attacks have a 20% chance to deal an additional 1,100 damage to garrison squads. So it's this ability here that you're going to need when you're dealing with your additional ones. And that 12% damage reduction is pretty huge. When you're talking about 15% that you're getting here, so that's a damage reduction of 27%. Which is pretty huge when you're during a siege. Okay, so which is why he's going to be co-leading. The extra bonus damage, no big deal. 1,100 is not great. Just a little outdated. And then when you awaken him, he gets even tankier by reducing counter damage taken by 20%. So he just becomes super tanky. 27% reduction in damage. 20% reduction in counter damage taken. 20% increase to defense. Direct damage. I mean, he's just a tanky siege. So you put him with Master Jin, for example, who's, you know, himself is really tanky. He's going to do really well. Bella Sven does pretty well. Elena Sven does pretty well. You know, anything along those lines will do pretty well. But you got to be in a siege, right? You're targeting a siege. He can work in the field, just not as good. He doesn't have a lot of movement speed. And because he doesn't have the skills tree, you're not going to lead with him. Again, just a little bit outdated. But that's Sven. Now, lastly, let's talk about Jonathan. The Wasteland Engineer, Jonathan. Jonathan is a special case. He's a special case because he really only has one job. And that's going to be targeting counter. So he's going to be counter rallying rallies that are targeting targets on your territory. So if you've built a tower, for example, you're going to counter rally rallies. You're going to counter rally with him against targets that are targeting your tower. Like, it's hard to explain, but he's so specific to what he does. It's really only going to be fighting on your territory in a rally. You see what I'm saying? So it becomes very, 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 very specific. And you'll see in his kit why that's the case. First, he comes with a support talent tree, which means he's never going to lead. He's only going to co-lead because the meta says skills over everything. Okay? So you're going to code lead with him. And then once we go through his skills, you'll see why he only has one role. First and foremost, deals damage at a factor of 12,500, not bad, to a target. If the target is a rally squad, the target HP is reduced by 20% and counter damage is reduced by 15% for 2 seconds. So already he has to be in a counter rally to get a huge portion of his skill. He needs to be rallying a rally squad. Okay? So he has to be rallying a rally squad to get the reduction in HP and counter damage. When you defeat squads, recover zone HP by 11,250, which is a decent heal. This effect is triggered at once, most every 30 seconds. Every 20 seconds, inflict damage to a random target at a factor of 7,500. Okay? So when you defeat squads, recover zone HP. But this is... You got to ask yourself, when is this going to be the case? When he's in the field, maybe. When you defeat squads, you get a nice big chunk of health back, maybe. Right? So maybe in the field. But you have to be in battle for 20 seconds to get that additional target. And so unless you're like staying to the fight, you know what I mean? Like you have to be in battle to get that extra additional damage. So, and a lot of field battle is not consistent fighting. In order to get that, you should be in a rally, right? So we're starting to see how this is specific to rallies. Now we have base set sail. A basic attack has a 20% chance of reducing skill damage received by 25% for 2 seconds. If in Alliance territory, it will also cause additional damage at a factor of 2,600 to the enemy. This effect can only be triggered once every 6 seconds. So, typically once every 5 seconds, this will trigger with a reduction in skill damage taken, which is huge. If in the Alliance territory, will also deal additional damage. So, now we can see he wants to be in a fight for a long period of time inside his territory in a rally, like targeting a rally. Now, he can swarm the rally, right? He could swarm the rally, but swarming the rally is stupid, especially if you're under-leveled. Just leads to troop deaths. So that doesn't make any sense unless you're crazy, unless you've got tier 6 everything and it doesn't matter. You might use them then, but you're only fighting inside your Alliance territory as well to get the best of his abilities. Now we've got resource adjustment. Rider squad attack increases by 25%. When the remaining troops fall below 30%, squad attack increases by an additional 20%. And remember, when remaining troops fall below 30%, well, the majority of that's going to happen inside a rally. Then you'll be refueling that rally and keeping your troops at around 30% to have that additional 20% increase. He's just very specific in what he does. And finally, when he's awakened, his damage increases to 13,750, which is good, right? And you have a target's reduction in HP is 25%, which is huge. And a counter damage is reduced by 20%, which is huge. So once he's awakened, he does better. But again, the problem is that most of his kit is relying on too many things. Most of his kit means you have to hit a rally squad, right? A huge portion here. Yeah, you have to hit a rally squad. You have to be fighting in Alliance territory. You have to be fighting for a long time, right? And you want your troops to be below 30%. So all of this points to him being in a rally, right? Targeting a rally inside his territory. So that rally has to be targeting your watchtower or something like that. Your forts, your buildings, things like that. But that's about it. Or targeting your own shelter even, right? If someone's rallying your shelter. But that's exclusively where he's used. Other than that, you probably won't use him in the field. You're losing too many stats and abilities. It just doesn't make any sense from there. Now, where can you use him? Again, in any of your rally situations. Pair him with Bella, pair him with Elena, pair him with Sven if you want. Pair him with Master Jin if you want to add more tank, more attack, more damage. There's lots of availabilities. I know I shouldn't be mentioning Master Jin. I'll be mentioning him a little bit later and where you can use him, but he's just, for someone like Jonathan, it's specific. because that's really all you're going to be using them for. But this is it, folks. That is going to make it up for our rally heroes. Those 4, Bella, Elena, Sven, and Jonathan. This now covers Cynthia, Catherine, Mai, Bella, Elena, Sven, Jonathan. Next in Garrison, we're going to see Chasey and Felix, and 2 honorable mentions with tips and tricks on Water War and Bounty Ground. So make sure you tune in for those. But that being said, folks, that is it for all that I can give you for this information for this year. If you like what you saw, go ahead and click the like button. Comment down below if you want to give any other advice or any other tips and tricks, or maybe something that I missed. Share this video with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Fill out the notification bell so you get any new updates when we drop new content. Love, peace, chicken grease, and until next time, stay lifted.